Hello, world history students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 6, Ancient Rome, Section 5, The Fall of Rome. So, in number 1, the Roman Empire in the AD 200s gradually began to decline due to weak leaders, economic problems such as inflation, civil wars, and the threat of invasion. And Rome needed to increase its armies to protect itself from growing threats of invasions from all sorts of different peoples, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. Emperor Diocletian created an absolute monarchy, and he ended up splitting the empire into two parts, sometimes known as the western half and the eastern half of the empire. And as a result of these actions, many Romans may have seen these actions as those of a power hungry ruler because he created such a bureaucracy. A bureaucracy is like a big, big form of government. And he eliminated many personal freedoms that people had once had. As a result of this new division, if you take a look at the map here on the right-hand side, Rome is going to be kind of the headquarters of kind of the Western Empire, and he's going to move the new capital to basically a place called Byzantium. But eventually, this town's going to be renamed Constantinople by another emperor. Okay, Rome at this point in time had kind of fallen into some disrepair, and there was a lot of issues with poverty and corruption. And so, by moving the empire's capital or dividing it, Diocletian thought he would be more efficient, but at the same time, he could build up the east. Diocletian and his co-emperor decided to retire at the same time because the two new Caesars could rise to become co-emperors at the same time. It's kind of like this principle that we had back when we talked about the triumvirate, that these men would all enter power together and all leave together. In the case of having dual leaders, it was a little more sustainable. Anyway, in time, quarrels erupted in AD 312, and Constantine came to power. He supported the spread of Christianity, which you heard previously, and he moved the capital to the east to the city that would now be known as Constantinople. In AD 400s, there were many Germanic tribes fleeing the Huns and the Vandals, and the Huns and the Vandals were eventually going to be attacking the Roman Empire from North Africa. These attacks and economic instability and weak leadership of the empire caused it to collapse. The Huns and the Vandals used barbaric and also unethical tactics to conquer new lands because both tribes were destructive and violent. They had little regard for innocent human lives. And if you take a look at the map here, this is kind of showing you a little bit of the spread of some of our Germanic tribes. Remember, we have divided our empire into two halves, and it seems like the western half of the empire is obviously a bigger target here. Britain, Gaul, Spain, North Africa, Carthage, for the most part, all came under attack, not to mention that there were attacks coming to the east as well, but certainly it puts a lot of stress. If you take a look at this map, it kind of goes into more specifics about what tribes of barbarians were coming in here. You can see the Huns listed in the green coming out of Central Asia. You also have the Angles or the Anglo-Saxons coming out of parts of Western Europe and moving into the British Isles. You have the Gauls, you have the Ostrogoths, you have the Visigoths, and eventually you have these groups known as the Vandals. And that's kind of where the term vandalism comes from, for how destructive these folks were. So in the mid-AD 400s, Attila the Hun attacked Gaul, which is France, but was turned back when the Romans allied with another barbaric troop known as the Visigoths. Attila then turned on Rome, but as he was persuaded to leave Italy or that Italian peninsula by Pope Leo I, also known as Leo the Great. Years later, in 476 BC or AD, the Western Empire was defeated by a man named Odoacer, and the Eastern Empire was able to endure for many centuries, known as the Byzantine Empire. Okay, so the fall of Rome. You do not need to write this down. But there were some military causes. Again, your barbarians, your Visigoths, Germanic tribes invaded the empire. Our Roman army lacked some military training and discipline, and Romans were forced to hire foreigners to kind of defend its border. Economic issues, heavy taxation, farmers left the land, the middle class disappeared, and there was a lot of slave labor. Politically, the government was too strict. People stopped supporting the government. You had corrupt officials, and our divided empire was very weak. Population declined as a social cause because of disease and war, and people became kind of lazy and selfish. So we are finished. Thank you very much.